Today I'll talk about 7 myths and misconceptions when we're talking about photography. My name is Selma Phototom here on YouTube. This channel is all about landscape and travel photography. If you're interested in this kind of topics, make sure to subscribe for more similar videos. Now let's dive in the topic from today. And the reason I recorded this video is because I get a lot of questions, especially during my workshops, about different things. Some of the questions are referring to different myths or some phrases that you hear in general when hear other photographers talking about photography or landscape photography in particular, and that's why I wanted to address this. So let's get started. This first thing that I want to talk about, it's more misunderstood expression, and that is gear doesn't matter. You will hear this everywhere, and my personal opinion is that in many cases the photographer is using it wrong, or the person that it hears it understands it wrong. Gear doesn't matter means that no matter what gear you have, it's not going to make you a better photographer. You're not going to have a better understanding on composition or choosing a subject or setting your camera or creating an interesting and compelling photo. Gear does matter. Without the proper gear, you can't do photography. I mean, if we're talking about landscape photography, without an ND filter, I can't do long exposures. Without the polarizer, I can't take out the glare. Without the tripod, I'm constrained and I can't use the camera at ISO 100 in any situation. So there are all sorts of things that you can't do if you don't have the proper gear. Gear doesn't matter in terms of actual gear. It's true, but only if we talk about high-end gear. From a certain point up, it really doesn't matter what camera you have, but only when we are comparing top cameras, top lenses, and so on, because gear will help you produce a better photo in terms of technical, in terms of the technical aspects. Now let's go to myth number 2. Always use rule of thirds. This is something that I encounter a lot. A lot of photographers that come to my workshops always have this obsession of placing the subject in by using the rule of thirds, and my recommendation is that the rule of thirds, don't treat it as a composition rule, but more as a placement suggestion. Composition, it's something that, in my personal opinion, it's different. Placing your subject using the rule of thirds, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but there are a whole lot of situations when you can break this rule. And for example, some of these situations are when you have symmetry in your photo, when you can go with a minimalist approach. For example, during winter you have an entire field of white snow and then you have only one tree right in the middle of the photo, or when you have let's say reflections and you use the horizon line dead in the center. Myth number 3, always photograph from tripod. As a landscape photographer, yes, you will mostly photograph from the tripod or by using a tripod, but it's not something that you have to hang on too tight, because you lose flexibility. In many situations, I search for the frame without the tripod. In many situations, when, for example, it's windy or the conditions are really bad, or when I'm photographing in really rough places where placing the tripod could be difficult, I have no problem on photographing without a tripod. Myth number 4 is kind of related to number 3. So myth number 4 is related to ISO, and there is this misconception that you always need to photograph at ISO 100, otherwise your photos will be ruined. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you is that, of course, the newest cameras can handle high values of ISO really well. There's a certain point, and when you go above that point, that ISO value, your camera will start produce a lot of noise. It's true for any camera. But my advice is this: if the resulted photo taken with a higher ISO value is properly exposed and you don't have to pull on the shadows some more, because that is the place where you're going to notice a lot of noise and artifacts in the shadows. So if you don't need to pull the shadows too high, you can use a higher value of ISO. Myth number 5: every photo needs editing. Now, let me be specific what I understand by editing. In my personal opinion, every photo needs some adjustments in terms of fringes or camera perspective. Okay, when I'm talking about editing, I'm talking about a personal interpretation. I'm talking about a lot more, changing the mood, the feeling, the colors, the saturation, the brightness, all sorts of elements in the photo. Basic editing means just checking that the histogram is okay, and maybe correct the perspective and eliminate or remove fringes. There are a lot of situations when no editing would be required. Editing will improve that photo, but the light is so good that you can simply use the photo like it is, and it still looks good. Myth number 6: you don't photograph in the harsh middle day sun. And this is something that I think I was really into until I reached the Dolomites in the north of Italy, and that was like a eureka moment for me, because I noticed that you can do a lot even during the day. And this is something that happened to me by, I think, 2015. That was a revelation that you can produce really interesting photos even in the harsh light. Now, when you move to urban photography, it's much easier to use harsh light. You can go even further and you can create some really interesting compositions. But when you talk about landscape photography, it's true that you need a certain type of landscape. You can't do photos with harsh middle day light in the forest, for example. It will look really bad. But when you are in the mountains, and in some mountains that look like the Dolomites, or even in the Dolomites, you will see that a different set of opportunities revealed to you. And the myth number 7: landscape photography is easy. And the consequence of this idea is that every person that starts photography is grabbing the camera and some lens and just goes and photographs landscapes with this idea that it's very easy. You just go in the mountains, you just go in the forest, you go wherever in nature, and you just photograph it. And that is why I think that landscape photography offers the biggest disillusions, because understanding light and understanding how you can capture it and how you can choose your subjects and how much of the elements in front of you need to be in the photo and how many needs to be out of the photo, these are things that you are going to learn in many years of practicing. So these were my 7 myths and misconceptions about photography. If you have something else to add, just use the comment section below. Maybe share this video with your friends. And until next time, keep on photographing, because it's the only way to get better. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.